Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike, and I am here with Randy, and we're going to dive into some things, and I'm going to wonder, do I like this person? But first, I'll just ask this person, how's your week been?
I'm fine. This other person, things are going pretty well, and excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today because there's some fun stuff going on here.
But as always, we tend to start with, what have you consumed this week, be it media, movies, TV, music, whatever you got. Randy, I'll let you start. What have you been watching, listening to, enjoying this week?
There hasn't been a lot other than what we're going to get into later. A lot of sports going on in the world with the NCAA basketball tournament. So it's been one of those things that between the men's and the women's tournament, there has been basketball on almost every night and a lot of good games, a lot of interesting things. My wife is also in a bracket in her work and has been immensely interested in in what's going on with that. Like she became a giant college basketball fan in the last couple of weeks, which has been great because I've always loved college basketball. So I'm like, cool, someone else that wants to watch it with me. So, and that has been mostly what I've been consuming. I haven't watched a whole bunch of pop culture stuff, candidly, other than I watched the new Invincible, the latest one that came out, which is really continuing to be really interesting and really good. Although reading some interviews with Kirkland, it's like, how many seasons are you going to have of this show? When he's talking about, season 8, season 9, season 11, I'm just like, oh my goodness. I mean, I really enjoy it and it's really entertaining, but there's a lot of canon they're going to try to shove into there, I guess.
I haven't started the new season. I've only watched the first season, and I could see that based on where they ended the first season in relation to where they were in the comics, right? They're
Yep.
not speed running. They're giving you good, faithful adaptations. And I'm assuming they're not speed running in the second either, based on how the first one went.
They give you a lot of hints to a lot of things that they don't pay off until a couple episodes later. So I think, or even, 6, 7, 10 episodes later. So I think it's that kind of thing lends itself to a longer format. But I'm really enjoying it. Having not read the comics, but it's just such an interesting, different take on a comic. It's more of that graphic novel that has more the down and dirty side of being a superhero is the violent aspect of it because of your immense power a lot of times. And it's just an interesting take.
It's fascinating to me because I like literally everything Robert Kirkman's ever done. His Marvel work, obviously his own properties. His Marvel work came after he had, gotten big, and they're like, "Hey, here's some money, do some things for us." What's
Mm-hmm.
great is he never stopped doing his own stuff. I'm disappointed because I feel like he's become a little bit of that George R.R. Martin, and that he has stopped creating because he has a business empire to run with Walking Dead and Invincible. And it's not to say he's not creative in these fields, but what I want is like, where's your new book? Where's, that new thing that you're working on? Incidentally, at the height of Walking Dead, when it was just blowing all the doors down as a comic, even pre-TV show, when they were like, holy shit, zombies are hot right now. If you've never read the first 2 volumes of Marvel Zombies, which was written by Kirkman, could not recommend it enough. It is hilarious. It is all the superheroes are zombies, and it is from their perspective. It is not like, oh, a normal person has to navigate a world where everyone's been infected. No, it's all the superheroes in their personalities, and they are just starving and pissy because they've eaten everybody. And they're like, how are we going to solve this? It's fantastic.
That's funny. Did they take any of that for the What If
They
episode?
did.
Okay.
They did, but not nearly as much as they should have. And not
Mm-hmm.
the problem I had with kind of the What If show on the whole is there's a real lack of personality. It felt
Yeah.
very flat to me. And that Marvel book or the Marvel Zombies is so much personality. But they did take a lot of stuff. Ant-Man's head in a jar from the cartoon. In the comics, that's Hawkeye. And
Okay.
then so they find Hawkeye's head, and Wasp, and it works out because in the comics it's actually Wasp that still finds the head, and they travel around, so it's a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
But
Huh.
yeah, so it's just interesting how that happened. The bit with Black Panther being eaten slowly is ripped right from the comics, and I was so glad to see that they did that. That was really
Nice.
cool. Except in the comics, it's Hank Pym who's doing it, because Hank Pym is one of comic books, and specifically Marvel's biggest bastards. He is one of the he is it's like superhero in name only. The things that that man has done over, the last 30 to 40 years of comic book continuity, he is not a good person. So he's not Beast from X-Men, which I can't remember if we talked about in X-Men 97. We talked about, was that offline or did we talk about it in the episode?
No,
I don't
I don't know
remember.
if it was in X-Men 97. We talked about it in a different point.
Okay, yeah.
So I think X-Men first, or maybe we're doing Marvel versus
I'm
DC.
sure we've talked about it,
Anyway,
but yeah,
we talked
sure.
about how Beast is not a mad scientist, essentially, right?
Well,
At
Beast
times.
Beast genocided a nation about a year and a half ago in the comics. Just kind of thought it'd be for the greater good. Didn't really work out for him or
Yee.
anyone. You know, it's good to have a hobby, Beast. I guess get out there.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's and what's interesting from a comic book standpoint. I'm sorry to derail this.
Mm.
I kind of went on a tangent. Is with X-Men 97 out right now and so popular already, like universally glowing reviews, people are loving it, it's tearing the doors down. And with Hank, oh, I remember what it was, his cameo at the end of the Marvels we talked about. That's
Right.
why we brought him
Yep.
up.
Mhm.
So the thing is that every iteration of Beast now that's being put back into pop culture, into the mainstream, is the one from like 1997 because it was when Grant Morrison took over the X-Men after the movies have been popular. Like 2001, 2002, Grant Morrison took over the X-Men and did just a sweeping revamp. And honestly, about every 10 to 12 years since then, the X-Men have undergone a big revamp. But right now, it feels like Marvel is resetting X-Men in pop culture to where it was in 1997 to bring back mainstream fans who don't know any of this. And my point being is, how are they eventually going to reconcile that in the comic books? Because Marvel, as a company, will want to make Beast the character mainstream audiences are seeing, so that when random person X picks up a comic book and goes, oh, I like Beast, I want to read this. That way they don't get scared away
Yeah.
by genocidal mad scientist Beast. How do they do that? How do you reconcile that in a comic book? What massive retcon are you going to have to pull off to be like, just don't worry about that other stuff that we did? It's Beast. You love him. He's hilarious. Oh my stars and garters.
Yikes.
But I'm just saying, it fascinates me
Yeah.
to think about, like, comic book retcons are one thing, to have to rewrite continuity or reestablish things or reset things. The Marvel movies are trying to deal with that now. How can we get moving again without erasing everything we've done and starting over?
Sure.
At a certain point, I think they are just going to erase everything and start over because it has to happen. But it's an interesting juggling act.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I did watch the new X-Men 97 episode 3 since last time. Did you watch the third episode?
I did, yeah. Really good. So, and
Yeah.
interesting. I had to look up. I did not know. Forgive me, Jean Grey's alternate or clone.
Madeline Pryor.
Thank you. Yeah, who I guess that was a big reveal for the canon of the show. So, or the comics rather.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too because I really enjoyed the episode and it continues being great, but shocked that they basically speed ran the entire Legion X-Men event from the 80s. I said Legion of Inferno. They speed ran the entire Inferno event from the 80s. Wasn't even a two-parter.
Yeah.
You're just like, we're gonna knock this shit out in a half hour. Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, the whole thing. The only difference in the comics was Madeline Pryor, while a clone, showed up while Jean had been dead in the comics for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't
Bigger
that
shock.
he was, yes. And well, it was weird because it happened while Cyclops was on leave from the X-Men and he came back dating a woman who looked exactly like Jean. And everyone's like, what the fuck? What you doing there, buddy? And it wasn't like no one jumped to it being a clone immediately, which is what I loved about those old comics. Instead of being like, my God, someone cloned Jean, it was Cyclops. This is really emotionally unhealthy. You should not be dating a woman that looks just like your dead ex. That's what I loved about those comics. No one was like, my God, it's a supervillain plot. It was, yo, Scott, that's fucking weird, bro. You gotta calm this down. So.
From a comic standpoint, I have a question for you. What is the story arc for Rogue and Magneto in the comics?
Oh, that is ripped right from the comics as well.
Okay.
And there has been, I'm trying to think of the exact way they phrase it, but basically somehow Magneto is able to put like a thin layer of protection, like a body condom, over himself using his powers. So that it kind of negates Rogue's touch,
Mm,
so that he's like the one person she can touch, because while she's getting the sensation of touch, he's not being connected in that
interesting.
regard. So, and that's been one of those things that, have you ever heard of the Age of Apocalypse crossover? It was pretty big in the 90s. I don't remember if that went super mainstream. But there was basically in the late 90s there was a crossover, or I say crossover, there was a big event where they genuinely killed Professor Xavier. And it was involved time travel. So what happened was they went back in time and killed Xavier, and they canceled every single X-Men book. And for 5 months, they published alternate reality X-Men just for 5 straight months
Yeah.
until they undid the event. Every single X-Men book was canceled and replaced with alternate titles, alternate realities, alternate versions of every book that was being published. And in that, the X-Men were led by Magneto and Rogue, who were married and had managed to have a kid in this alternate universe.
Okay.
So it was in that one, Magneto ran the X-Men because as Xavier had died, he was like, please continue my dream. So Magneto had never had a chance to become a bad guy because that's how it kept moving.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. Cool.
yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Wow. I was joking before we started recording. I was like, Randy, this is kind of going to be your episode. Like, we're going to talk a bunch about sports. You got another album review coming. And then I just dominated the first 10 minutes with comic book talk because I can't let you have anything nice.
The nerd flows through or something. I don't know. I need a better line on that, but yeah.
Yes, no issues. I have no. Great news. My Instacart delivery that was supposed to be here a half hour before we started recording is about to be here. I'm looking at the screen and he's parked outside my building. And the fact that he's an hour late means he's going to be one of those drivers who can't figure out how to work my intercom. There's, you can tell how it's going to go for people because
I
I wish it was that. I'm going to read you. I'm going to make this part of the show because I get salty about it. Delivery details. All right. Call my name on the intercom. Find the name, not the apartment number, using the A to Z buttons, and I can buzz you in. Do not select the apartment number. Use my name. Because I don't know why the intercom thing is. You know how it's going to go if somebody read the instructions or not. If I see a phone call that says DoorDash in about 30 seconds, it's going to be, hey, man, your intercom's not working. I'm like, God damn it. I can feel this happening in a second.
Oh.
I said DoorDash, but Instacart, Anyway.
We'll throw them all together.
I'm a sad, salty, angry man. Talking about comic books and waiting for my deliveries because I'm privileged. I'm trying to think if I started watching anything else this week before we get moving. I have been telling a friend that I was going to start Always Sunny at some point because I've never really watched Always Sunny. It's been one of those things that I've seen in like online snippets.
It's a commitment. I mean, because there's a ton of
it's 20 fucking seasons at this point. And I will tell you, I watched the first 2 episodes today, and I know that it's 20 years old, and I got bored. I tuned out. And I recognize that it's probably because 20 years ago, it was an amazing, mind-blowing, how are they getting away with this? And now I'm just like, I'm kind of bored. So I'm going to commit. I'm going to stay with it. But
I think, yeah, like anything, it's not as good that first season. Like it seemed probably like something that sort of caught on cultish, but it gets better. But it never shies away from what it is. So if you are not a fan through 6 or 7 episodes, I would not advise you to stick with it because it does not change.
Well, a couple of people have told me get through the first season, much like you just said with The Office, Parks and Rec, all these shows that were just not great in their first season.
They hadn't figured out how it worked, yeah.
Right. And then, to be fair, a lot of the clips I've always enjoyed seeing here, Danny DeVito, and everyone's like, yeah, he doesn't show up till the second season.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so I feel like if I power through the first season, it'll probably establish a base. I'll know the characters a little more. I'll get references that get made later because I know some people said they love the show because of all their callbacks. So I don't want to miss anything crucial that could happen there for jokes later on that could pay off. But if I'm partway through the second season and I'm not feeling it, I'll probably tap out.
That's I think that's a fair amount to give it.
How
It's not like
many how many seasons was Schitt's Creek? 6? Did they use 6 seasons? 5 seasons?
was it 7 even?
I'm gonna look it up right now. My point being that I kept being told that that's the best 6 seasons. I kept being told that that's oh god damn it. There's the fucking phone. I'll be right back.
Yep.
Let me mute myself. Great news, he figured it out.
Oh, wow, okay.
What the hell were we talking about? I was getting excited about something right before we got interrupted.
You were something else you were watching. Schitt's Creek. We started to get into that.
Oh, yes. We were talking about Always Sunny,
Mhm.
and I was saying that I didn't like Schitt's Creek, and I stuck with that into the 3rd season because I had a friend, I had made a promise that I would try to watch the show because I loved it so much. And I'm just like, I know it's not a popular opinion, but I was like, I fucking hate this. I do not like this show. And I can't tell you why I have this deeply unpopular against the mainstream opinion. It just did not do it for me.
Well, and I think it's a similar thing too that it doesn't change, right? So its
Oh,
sense of humor is what it is. So if you don't like it, I mean, that's open for debate what that means or whatever. But it's if you didn't like
right.
it, you're not going to keep liking something that's not funny. I'm sure there's other instances of sitcoms that are beloved that I'm kind of like, eh.
No, I got you. And it's one of those things too, because they told me like, no. They're like, it's not that it changes, that things start to pay off and develop and you'll get hooked in and you'll want to see what happens. And I was like, that has not we're 3 seasons in. It has not happened for me yet. I am not emotionally connected to this show. And with that, we will dive right into a long awaited return of a segment.
Mm.
It has been weeks and weeks and weeks. Let me cue that smooth music I put in right now. Yeah, we'll just pretend it's there because we can't actually. I added and added. Yeah, that's nice. Is that the beat? I don't remember the beat. I just know I have the track saved.
You'll never know. No, actually.
Oh, good. But it's the return of Cool Guy Randy's Cool Guy Music Corner, where Randy talks to me about an album that I may or may not know, a band I may or may not know, and we just dive into why does this work for him? Why does he love it? And why should I and you all listen to it? Randy, what do you got?
So I alluded to this probably 6 or 7 episodes ago that I would delve into this band, and it's one of my favorite bands, groups, whatever you want to call them, of all time. I'm obsessed with them. I've seen them 10 times, something like that. And
Holy shit! All right.
yeah, they're incredible. It was a large portion of my coming into a specific genre of music. They were my moderate introduction to hip hop, and what it became other things. It's the Beastie Boys and their 4th studio album, Ill Communication. Mostly known for the giant kind of rap rock crossover hit, whatever you want to call it, Sabotage. Known for the video as well. So I'm sure you have. Oh, I'm not sure, but I would bet you have that on your phone.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. It was. I have to look at the full album, but I think I have several songs
Okay.
from this album. I don't know the full track listing, but yeah, this album was fucking gigantic.
Yes, it
So
was
yeah.
indeed. Yeah. A really, really big hit based off of, Sabotage was part of it that came out. This was like I said, the 4th studio album for the Beastie Boys, who just had this kind of fascinating trek through their musical prominence. And it started as the, 1986's License to Ill that had, you got to fight for your right to party, which interestingly enough, the Beastie Boys have been on record saying they don't really like, even though it's by far probably the most known and popular song that they've ever brought out.
I've heard that they basically are like, that's a joke track to us. Like
Yeah,
we just thought it was fun and like it wasn't meant to become our anthem.
they
Essentially.
got involved with Rick Rubin, who the famous producer who was at NYU at the time. The Beastie Boys are all from the Manhattan and Brooklyn, and they all got together and they just found something that hit because Rick Rubin founded Def Jam Records. Run DMC took off. Ad Rock actually discovered LL Cool J, which is really, really interesting. So there's some other
Oh, wow.
components that they all kind of came together. Def Jam exploded, and the Beastie Boys were a giant part of that. But a lot of those lyrics in the earlier stuff where they were sampling a lot more hard rock type things, really didn't have there's a song called Girls, which is pretty offensive actually. And they've said the same thing where but they were 19-year-olds in 1985, 1986. So I hate to be like it's a different time, but, and they've since kind of profusely apologized for it. But, it
I
was,
get what you're saying because that was frankly, and again, we talk about age differences and the eras and even in relation to Always Sunny, the person that told me about it, I mean, I'm getting point, I'm sorry to cut you off, but the person that told me about it is like, oh, it's a different era. You know, a lot of the things wouldn't fly today. And that doesn't always mean something should fly or should be made or something like that. But I remember girls used to get a lot of radio play. It's
yeah,
not anymore. There
no.
was a point in the 90s, girls got a lot of radio play in the early
Mhm.
90s. And so, like, times change. It's a weird era.
And they would still play a decent amount of, I mean, the last time I saw the Beastie Boys was not probably 8 to 10 months before, Adam Yauch, MCA, passed away from cancer. This was probably 13, 14 years ago. And they would still play stuff off that album, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, some other things like that. So it's still part of their musical canon, but they continued to move on. Moved out to Los Angeles for their second studio album, which is called Paul's Boutique. They got introduced to these producers called the Dust Brothers and got really into layering and sampling. And some of the stuff that you hear on Paul's Boutique, while not a commercial success, is just mind blowing. It used to be, okay, we're going to sample one song or one little bit of a song with a drum beat. The Beastie Boys would layer 5 or 6 things underneath and just do all these really cool, fun sounding things that, it's a really, really, I almost picked that album to talk about here, but, I didn't, it doesn't have, like I said, as much of a commercial appeal to it. Worth a listen, but at the same time, so this became part of their evolution. Yeah. Oh, go
Say,
ahead.
as you're mentioning all of these, I'm kind of playing along on Wikipedia, looking and seeing what I know, what I
Mhm.
remember. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there, but it even says here this album did not do nearly as well.
It did, and it was kind of a surprise because people, I think, were expecting License to Ill Part
By the
2,
way,
and it was
did
just
you
totally different,
look at the
huh?
Dust Brothers discography or who they've produced after this album? Did you look?
It didn't.
They went
Where'd they
on
go
to
to?
do like the next three Beck's like first three albums, which is awesome. They
Oh,
produced
okay.
the
Mhm.
soundtrack to Fight Club and
That
and
makes sense.
this one probably won't.
Uh-oh.
They also produced Mbop by Hanson.
Oh, boy.
So
Well, they're still collecting
I was about to
royalties on
say
that, good for them,
you
so, they're
can't say they don't make hits. You can't say they don't make
yeah.
hits.
Except for Paul's Boutique, and weirdly enough,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
which is a really cool, I mean, again, a really cool album. So I'll kind of move through the next, what the Beastie Boys decided after that they wanted to get back into. They had started as a punk rock band in New York, kind of playing their instruments. MCA was a bass player. Mike D played the drums, and Ad Rock, played guitar and sang, in a hardcore band. And they decided they wanted to pick up their instruments a little bit more, and so they got a lot more instrumental type stuff, playing different things and making that sound. And that's what Check Your Head was, which was Check Your Head, mostly known for So What You Want, was probably the big hit off of that one. And that's probably the main one. Um, but that became another part of their evolution with their sound. So all of a sudden, the Beastie Boys we're this rap rock, Def Jam sound. No, we're this layered, crazy production sound. Oh no, actually, we're going to be this instrumental kind of groove band. And then Ill Communication took a lot of elements and just put them all together. And you get a little bit of everything in it, and that's why it's such a cool album. On top of, again, probably one of their most popular just because of Sabotage. But there's some great songs on it. It kicks off with a song called Sure Shot, which was relatively well known, and it's just a decent paced kickoff to it. It starts with a sample of a dog barking, which is really weird, but and then it gets right into kind of an earworm hook, that lends into their style of the way the Beastie Boys rhyme is they do this kind of the three of them together. So one will rhyme a little bit, and at the end of each part of the line, the other ones will chime in and kind of sing the same part. And it's kind of a very distinct style that they have with their rapping, and so you always kind of know how a Beastie Boys song is being framed. So Sure Shot very much like that. And there's a couple other ones. Once you get you bounce around on Ill Communication. So Sure Shot, more of a typical kind of hip hop sounding song, especially from the mid '90s. They go into a song called Tough Guy, which is a way throwback to sounding like one of their old hardcore punk rock songs, uh, followed by a instrumentally, and then they would do some stuff with their vocals, so it sounded muddled a little bit. They took this. I don't know the exact filter name of it, but it's a song called B-Boys Making with the Freak Freak, and I'm gonna go in completely left field here on this. In B-Boys Making with the Freak Freak, they sample, and I had to look it up to see what it was. There was a 1965 comedy album called That Ain't My Finger, by I'm going to say it wrong, maybe Mantan Moreland, and who was known for being Charlie Chaplin's chauffeur in most of his movies.
Oh,
Also,
wow, yes, legendary.
and then I guess became a comedian somewhat of note in the early to mid 60s. Off the comedy album, he is addressing a party that is getting out of control. And it leads to about a minute and a half into this B-Boys Making with the Freak Freak song. They cut to this quote from the album that says, "Shit, if this is going to be that kind of party, I'm going to stick my dick in the mashed potatoes."
Oh,
Which,
fun.
which is one of those quotes that
I didn't see it coming, I'll tell you
you did
that.
not see it
Did not
coming,
see it
and
coming.
it is very specific to, you need to be in the right crowd if you're ever going to drop that line, to know that it comes very specifically with that, because it kind of comes out of nowhere. And I remember the song itself, it's fine. It's decent rhyming, cool sound, but listening
Yeah.
to it, I remember I would always go, okay, cool. Sure Shot. I'll listen to Tough Guy, and then B-Boys and the Freak Freak would start, and I would just fast forward a minute, 10 seconds. I'm like, oh, here it comes. This guy's going to say it. And he would get into, yes, what he's going to do with the mashed potatoes.
Can I add a fun fact that I thought was fascinating? Because again, I'm
Please, yeah. Please.
Wikipediaing a lot of things you talk
Yes.
about. The Mantan Moreland person that you're talking about, fascinating to me. Or do you follow? I was never a big Three Stooges guy, yet I know a lot about their history because I'm fascinated by the evolution of replacing people in an act and how they, search. Because, like Curly begat Shemp, begat Joe Besser, who no one really liked in the 50s. Because the fact that a lot of people are like, there's a Stooge after Shemp, yeah, it didn't go great. So apparently, this guy, Mantan Moreland, who is an African American comedian, was floated by Mo Howard to be the new third Stooge. He'd been
Wow.
watching him for years and wanted him, and Columbia Pictures said no, purportedly because they wanted somebody already contracted to the studio, but also probably because racism. So,
Yeah, probably.
so yeah. So, but isn't that fascinating?
It
So
is.
there you go.
And
Yeah.
swinging back, I had it in addition to being the Charlie Chaplin movies, he was also in the 1941 film King of the Zombies. So we'll bring our zombie speak
Oh
full
yeah.
circle or whatever. I have no idea what King of the Zombies is. I just have that in my notes, but one worth
I
checking out, I guess. If you can find it.
Sure. Well, zombie. Who doesn't love a 1941 American zombie comedy film directed by Gene Yarborough, starring Dick Purcell, Joan Woodbury, and Mantar Moreland?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
I know. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Jiminy. By the way, somebody left a review, not in any one of our podcast things, but as like a comment on my TikTok. It's like, you're really funny, but sometimes you just talk too fast for me. And I was like, that moment just now, I was like, that ain't going to be good. That's a
Oh,
bad one.
oh
All
well.
right. Yeah.
So we've hit a bit of an aside, but that is a part I can always remember growing up and listening to that part. We get into Bow on the Corner is the fourth song on the album and is more of an instrumental. And so after you've had fast pace opener, continued fast pace with the punk rock, the goofy left field sample that makes you laugh and still has kind of a good groove, more of a good groove. Then you get into it is a 3-song hammer. I mean, this is from I can go straight through. I listen to these three songs over and over again. It goes Root Down, Sabotage, and Get It Together. These three songs together. Root Down was I don't know how. I know sometimes you pull up iTunes and can see what's most downloaded
Yeah.
and things like that from Ill
Yeah, I'll do it right
Communication. So
now.
I'm sure Sabotage is one of
Oh,
the is
100%.
probably number one. And then Sure Shot was another fairly popular one. So I would say Sure Shot and Root Down, but Root Down definitely up there. Has a really, really funky bass line. They just rhyme over it, and it's the same kind of. The interesting thing about their rhyming as well is that they're very distinct voices. So even though I think there was a misconception that they all sort of sounded similar, but Adam Horovitz has this screechy kind of braggadocio nasal not high pitched, but higher pitched delivery.
You are right, by the way, in that it's interesting. If you ever look on iTunes and you look at the popularity and sales, you get a little graph of little notches that fill in. If a song is super popular and the most popular thing, every notch is filled in. That's Sabotage,
Okay.
obviously, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't sell very well, there's 1 to 2 little tiny notches filled in at the bottom. The rip that you're talking about is like you get Sure Shot, which is about half filled.
Mm-hmm.
Then it kind of goes down, and then suddenly it's like a little dip of like kind of filled in, all the way filled in for Sabotage, kind of filled in for the next one after, and then back down to nothing. Like these three, as you're saying, and it's reflected in sales, are clearly a high point of the album that people want to own.
And the ones that got radio play, they were the singles too, so that's definitely contributing to it. The Sabotage obviously gets its pull from it. It just was a huge hit, but the video was made. The music video, Spike Jonze made it enormous, just huge. It was the three of them dressing up as 70s. It was basically like a 70s police drama entrant. Big video. I feel like that was a big Halloween costume the year after it came out, dressing up like Sabotage. People always had Sabotage shirts, it just everything that was on there. The interesting thing about Sabotage was that it was an instrumental until about 2 weeks before they released the album. It was just the guitar parts.
Really?
There was no lyrics to it. And then with about 2 weeks leading up to Ad Rock just came up with it. And basically he is portraying a holier than thou kind of full of themselves artist yelling at their producer to say, I
Wow.
can't stand it. I know you planned it, like it just that's the idea behind the lyrics that were there. But just it's interesting to think that had that not happened, that one point, that would just be maybe known for being an instrumental, a cool instrumental, but who knows if it would ever been as big as it would have been.
You don't get a lot of good rock funk instrumentals hitting the mainstream anymore.
No.
You're not getting Green Onions like it's 1968
Right.
anymore. It's that'd be really interesting to have included this and frankly, I was going to say the middle, not quite the middle of like a mainstream major release.
Sure. Get It Together, the track that directly follows Sabotage, has that kind of vibe of it's just a little funky beat that Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest guests on. And basically he had showed up to their music studio and just started freestyling over this beat. And they were like, that was so amazing that they kind of cut it up and rhymed around it, which was really cool. So it has a very, it's just cool back and forth where Q-Tip is kind of the glue that holds it all together. And they just kind of trade rhymes with him, even though it's interesting because he already did it. But one of my favorite lines from it is Ad Rock's down with the Ione, which reflects back to a time when Ad Rock, I don't know, I think he married Ione Sky from Say Anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was dating her, even if he was not
And when
not
you
married to
said
her.
the name, my gut reaction was like, oh, John Cusack's wife, which is not in any way accurate.
He would have liked So and Say Anything, but it's the one other note I had was back about Sabotage, talking about the music video, is incredibly it lost the MTV Music Video Award that year to Aerosmith's Crying, which I have in parentheses, what the fuck? Like
which one of the that's one of the Alicia
Silverstones, yeah.
Which one? Is that the first one or was Crazy the first one?
Oh man, I don't know. Now I don't know if I know.
because
Hmm.
there's two
Or
with
did
her.
was she in
Uh,
Living on the Edge? No, I
no,
can't.
no,
Oh,
she was in Crazy and Crying. No, no,
okay.
she was in Crazy, Crying, and Amazing. It was the trilogy. She did 3
God.
Aerosmith videos because I remember these very clearly
There
because,
was one where she
you
bungee
know,
jumped off the bridge and she
that
flipped off the camera.
that's crazy. I know that's crazy.
Okay. Okay.
I don't remember which one Crying is now. That's the one that won?
That one, luckily, at least in 1999, the MTV Movie Awards showed the error of their ways.
Oh, no,
And
that is Crying. Crying is the bungee jump one.
okay,
I thought that
okay,
was crazy.
that was a good video. Okay, but
Yeah,
still
yeah.
not as good as Sabotage. But in '99, they gave Sabotage Best Video to never win an award. That was a
Oh,
category they had out, and they gave that
that's
whatever
awesome.
after the fact, which is pretty funny.
Also, I realized I was 12, no, I was 11 when Crying came out. So like I was just on the cusp of being like, oh, Alicia Silverstone's a very attractive woman, right?
Mhm.
But
It was
I
everywhere
didn't
then.
I didn't realize when those videos came out, she was 16.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable. Now I'm 11, so it's fine for me,
Uh,
but she was 16, being very sexualized in these music videos,
the
and I did not realize that.
what's the movie with Carrie Elwes? The Crush? Like that is a
Yeah.
super uncomfortable movie in retrospect.
And
Like,
that was like the same era. I thought she
yeah,
was
oh
like,
yeah, it might be earlier, dude. Like,
can
oh, it's
I tell you, until this moment right now, every ounce of me thought she was like 21 when all this shit was going down.
yeah,
Every ounce of me until this exact moment. I feel grossed out. Oh my God, it was the same year. She was 16. Oh
man.
my God. Did they fuck in that movie? They don't
This
fuck.
is taking a turn.
Okay. Sorry. You were talking about an
No,
album you like.
we don't have to get into it.
I am reading.
Yes.
You keep talking about your album. I am reading the Wikipedia for The Crush, 1993, starring Alicia Silverstone and Carrie Elwes. Because I
I
remember
got it.
this movie, but not well.
It is, yeah. It is not appropriate to say it was a different time, but
Yeah,
it is
this was
contextual.
never a
It is
good one.
contextual, I think so. Yeah, but um, that's most of what I have. The rest of the album, it's a lot of similarly bouncing around. Where there's cool grooves, there's some instrumental stuff, there's some other kind of trading rhymes back and forth. There's songs that you may not know that I would encourage you to check out because it's a 2021 track album. So there's a lot to listen to, and some of it starts to kind of flow together because there are instrumentals
Yeah.
that are like, is this one's track or is this kind of the other?
It's a lot
Um,
longer than I thought it would be when I looked
yep,
up the album. I did not expect to, and not like when you sometimes you see an album that's like 2021 tracks, it's like, oh, this one's 40 seconds and this one's
yeah.
20 seconds. No, there's
No,
like they go all out. This is a packed album.
they got into it. Yeah, Flute Loop and Do It are two that I would say definitely check out. But this album rules. It's great. I mean, I'm so biased because I love the Beastie Boys, but this is a great catch-all of everything that they can do
I,
and they continue to do, which is really cool.
I will tell you that in my ignorance, while again, I know radio singles and I know things, I thought Sabotage was on the next album, the one that had like the tin can as the cover.
Intergalactic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
thought,
Hello Nasty was the next one. Yeah.
yeah, which
Mhm.
I remember
Great,
that.
another great album too. So I mean, that's
And I remember a lot of those singles too, looking at that. But in my mind, not being a diehard or anything,
Mhm.
I thought that was all the same album.
I want to
But
say that was '98. I think that
yes,
one came out.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
mhm.
That one came out because again, we talk about you have just a couple of years on me, like 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
So
Yep,
that one came out when I was in high school. So
gotcha. And I was on
uh,
the tail end of it. So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yep,
yeah. That was
that
like my
tracks. So
yep. So and that could also be why I do often think a lot of the stuff with hip hop and a lot of things like this, I came in that it could be that just couple year age difference too. Why it
could be.
missed me and hit you because you were. It seems silly to say 2 or 3 years for examples, but 2 or 3 years can really make a difference on pop culture.
1990 to 95 to 1990 to 1998 was a wild time. That
Yeah.
just the amount of technological advancement, the amounts of, just cultural, like all sorts of stuff was going on. I know that
Yeah.
happens in every decade, but it really
Oh
felt
yeah.
like at that
Well,
time, just the difference in how someone who is, again, like we're talking about, someone who is 5 years younger than me or 5 years younger than you, it just have completely different
mhm.
contextual tastes. It's interesting.
It's crazy to think too. I always think about, I feel like we talk about how you started 1990 with hair metal being the biggest thing on the planet. In 1991, Nirvana shows up, and that's true. But then I feel like you got to keep the conversation going to exactly what you're saying. Then 94 happens, 95 happens, 96, like it becomes into hip hop and boy bands and pop music comes back and all sorts of type. It's a hell of a decade.
It was so crazy I remember when I first started at my first job and my first kind of real, full-time job. And there were a bunch of other guys that were probably 4 to 8 years older than me that were in this similar position. And the fact that they were all so stoked that Motley Crue was coming to a local venue, and I was just like, really? Like, and they were really excited about it.
Yeah,
And so I was surprised at how much of a same thing, like you said, hair metal. I I'll listen to it. It's kind of a fun
it's
guilty pleasure,
fine.
but I don't know if I would ever go see it.
Yeah, I
I went and saw Guns N' Roses. I don't know if I call that hair
I
metal.
would
I think
not.
they're a
I
little
would not.
beyond that. So I
They
think
were.
that's a
Yeah.
little bit of an insult to them, but that's about the furthest extent of anybody that I would ever saw like that. But it boggled my mind, people that were that close in age to me, that was
Yep.
so much what they were interested in.
It's fascinating too, because the last thing I'll say on that, just because, and also by the way, good at solid album review. I have every intention to trying to dive into this album more than
Mhm.
the surface level that I have with the singles,
Yep.
right? Especially just some of the ones that you've mentioned, and maybe even seeing. Oh, I have a question, and I feel like you're going to laugh at me, but it's a genuine question. Track 18, Shambhala, is that a Three Dog Night cover, or is that its own thing?
It's its own thing.
Okay, just checking. Well, can I tell you
I don't
when
think they've ever. That's interesting. I don't know if they've ever done. No, I take that back. They they only had the one cover that I know from, and I have an extensive amount of Beastie Boys records and albums. It was a live cover. So they with their keyboardist is a guy named, he goes by like Money Mark, and he came out. Biz Markie hung out with the Beastie Boys a lot. Of
just a
what am I
friend?
blanking? Thank you. I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I blanking on the
Well,
biggest hit that he had?
I'm a pretty well-known hip hop enthusiast,
Yeah,
Rand.
aficionado, of course.
Yeah.
So put me in my place here. But
Yeah. Well,
he
some
came
people
out
got it.
and so Bismarck, he came out while Money Mark started playing on the keyboard, and then the other BC Boys came out and provided accompaniment from their instruments. And he did a cover of Benny and the Jets. And if you have not heard Bismarck covering Benny and the Jets, I would encourage you to seek it out. It
I
is awesome.
I will definitely seek that out. That sounds delightful. The only just thinking of covers that songs I had hoped were covers and then turned out not to be. On Lover, great Taylor Swift album. I like her poppier stuff.
Mhm.
She has a track called Cruel Summer, and she releases all her track names ahead of time. And I tell you, I was the only person I know actively disappointed that it was not a cover of Bananarama's Cruel Summer. I was
Oh,
so disappointed that it was a heartfelt song about her own life because I wanted it to be fucking Bananarama so bad. And that is not a joke. That is, I mean, I'm saying it because it's funny, but that is 100% true. I wanted that to be the case.
it is. I mean, it's a really good song. So it's a. Didn't Ace of Base cover that song?
Yes, they did. And there was this part of me that thought, oh, what a rich lineage we're creating for Cruel Summer. So we're gonna pivot a little because we're a pop culture podcast, but we're getting to some rough, tough physicality here.
Mhm.
So interesting thing. I just remembered a point I'd wanted to make off the intro when you had talked about how maybe we're not doing as much pop culture because you wanted to talk the NCAA tournament. I wanted to pivot and say the way the tournament's going this year, especially the women's tournament, I think it's peak pop culture because it is currently as popular as it's ever been. It's crossing into new territories, it's making new fans. Whatever else you can say, that to me is almost the basis of something that becomes a pop culture moment. Next year, maybe it's not as popular if Caitlin Clark's not playing, right? There could be any set of circumstances that make this right now an important moment in pop culture just because it's crossing over into different people's lives and different genres and areas that maybe it wouldn't have been otherwise. So
Yeah, she's
I
a
think this
phenomenon, that's
qualifies
for
this
sure.
moment.
Yeah, she's a
Yes.
superstar. It's just you don't want to. I don't want to say it demeans her to be like the Steph Curry right now. I mean, she's
Oh
doing
yeah.
what she's doing on the basketball court is akin to what Steph Curry was doing in the NBA to bring just something that people don't do. I think that's what like, makes basketball so cool to watch sometimes is that when people can consistently do something that nobody else really does, it stands out so much more because it's not easy to
Yeah.
make a shot from 40 feet away.
And it's funny is I wanted to originally do some WrestleMania talk, which I still want to get
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but and then kind of parlay into this. But we're already here. And,
Okay.
I tried to say it about NCAA stuff, but we're already here. Randy wanted to talk about the tournaments with me, and I do not know sports. Fun fact: if you follow me on social media, you'll have already figured this out. I work in live television, and this is Randy, and I often work in live sports TV. I am not someone who gets a lot of like entertainment or other work. I am often working in sports television. That said, I don't know shit about sports. I don't know the amount I have learned over my career is staggering. Fun story before we get into this. About 10 or 12 years ago, like real early into my TV career and doing a lot of sports and stuff, we were kind of with a group of people and there was a New England Patriots game on and everyone's watching this game. And I know who Tom Brady is because, celebrity. And I don't care, but everyone's watching the game and they keep showing him on the sidelines. And I look at someone and I go, why isn't he playing? I thought he was like the big guy. And they're like, they're on defense. I go, I don't know what that means. I go,
If he's so
I
great,
go,
why isn't he playing defense too?
I'm like, I don't know what that means. They're like, he's the quarterback. He only when they're on offense. And I was like, oh, all right.
Oh man, I wish I knew you that. That would have been
Yeah.
great.
So what I'm saying is I've learned a lot over the last decade plus, but knowing and caring are often two wildly different things. And especially working in the industry often, I equate it to I don't want to come home and feel like I'm working. I want to come home and watch cartoons.
Right.
And I know a lot of people who work in live sports who are just diehards and still want to do that. They want to come home and watch more games and do more things. And it's because, well, that's not the one I worked on. I want to see how this team and that. Not me. I'm good. I'm good. That said, the reason I was going to tie it into wrestling is because I was going to pivot it and say, like wrestling, I often get sucked into the storylines of real sports.
Sure.
There is a through line of how is this person doing? How is this team doing? What's the scenario around, XYZ in the city and all these? There's a million different things at play that I find fascinating. The problem is then actually having to watch a game loses me entirely. So, but I like knowing what's happening. I like knowing results and playing along. You talked about your wife and the bracket. I have been all in on brackets before. And, gambling really helps sports interest because you get vested. It's really big. I love it. It's great. So gambling helps a lot. So that's
Disclaimer: Wait, are these guys friends? Is no proponent of any.
Look, I was about to say, hang on, pause. If you or a loved one is experiencing a gambling problem, make sure you call, find help, and never spend more than you are able to spend in 1 moment. Thank you. Okay, anyway, gambling and sports are great. I love that. But I just don't care to watch the game. I want to know outcomes and do the thing.
Sure.
It's like I grew up in Michigan, and I don't care to watch the sports, but I love knowing the Lions are doing better. Like I appreciate that because I worked in Michigan when they went 0-16 and I saw everyone in the state and everyone just so fucking depressed. And I lived through that. And so I have an emotional connection to seeing them do well. I just don't care to watch.
Yeah.
So anyway, Randy, I don't know how you wanted to frame this. I don't know what you want to talk to me or how you want to ask or what you want to do, but let's do our big NCAA tournament Final Four sports preview segment.
So and I will borrow a phrase from you from the uninitiated.
Yeah.
The NCAA tournament is set up that 68 teams are selected to make a one and done. So they play each other. Oh, were you going to get?
No, I didn't want that to play. I was queuing up some music that I didn't mean for you to hear right away. I was gonna kind of try to sneak it in, but then it was too loud and I fucked it up. Please continue.
But one of the cool things about the NCAA tournament for basketball is that in just about every other sport, the championship round is a series of games where you have to win 4 out of 7 games. So a lot of times the best team shows that they're the best team over that time because they, it's just the law of averages.
You
Whereas
could lose one, but you win 3 more, so you move
exactly.
on.
But in a one and done scenario, sometimes, if a team just gets hot and just they cannot miss shots, it doesn't matter that the other team was the number one team, hadn't lost a game all season.
Yeah.
They ran into a buzzsaw that night. So the way I wanted to frame this is the final four, which is the national semifinals, is as of taping, the weekend coming up. And there are 4 teams, and basically I was going to see what you knew about those 4 teams based on telling it, and then give you a little bit of insight on. They each have interesting storylines and interesting personnel.
Good.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
I know this is the old NBA and NBC theme, but it just felt like it needed to be a part of this. It's the first thing I thought of. Yeah. Anyway, go, Randy.
Tonight, it's the Chicago Bulls versus the...
Talk to me about the NCAA tournament.
I'm distracted by the theme, but it's...
I thought it would help. I thought it would really add some emotion. All right, there you go.
That's, I guess an idea, but so...
Is this better?
I would like... Oh, boy.
All right, talk to me about the NCAA tournament.
So the way that the tournament is set up is that no, but the Izzy's. Were you impressed? I was going to try to push
I
through
really
that.
was. I thought you were going to make me stop.
So I'm going to go one by one, see if you know anything about these just based on
good.
your...
I thought you were going to ask me...
working television or just knowing what we're going to do.
I thought you were going to ask me who the
No.
teams were, because it was like, I have no fucking idea.
I'm going to give them to you, see what you know about them,
exciting.
see what you affiliate with them, and then I'll give you a fun kind of interesting fact about what has happened with them, because they all have pretty cool storylines. So we will start off with the Purdue Boilermakers, located in West Lafayette, Indiana. They were the number 1 seed in their region. Do you know anything about Purdue?
That is not a hockey team? So...
That is not a hockey team.
Okay. Really felt like that was a hockey team. Just checking. Because that's my gut reaction.
I love this already, huh?
Where's Purdue?
Right. West Lafayette, Indiana.
That's right, it is
far.
Indiana. Okay, you said that. Okay,
Yeah, so not far from Chicago. Probably, I'll get corrected, but a couple hours.
Where
from
Larry Bird played college ball? Where he played against Magic Johnson?
He played at Indiana State, so you're the right state.
Well, that's the best I could give you when you said Indiana.
Yeah.
So I know what do you got? What's your fact?
No. So Purdue, a 1 seed for the 2nd season in a row, they won their conference last year, made history, a 1-16 game in the history of the tournament. Before a few years ago, a 16 seed had never beaten a 1 seed.
I remember that.
Now, that happened a few years back when the University of blanking on Missouri, Kansas City, really beat Virginia. And it was the first time a 16 seed had ever beaten a 1 seed. Now, what was interesting was the following year, Virginia won the national championship. So last year, Purdue became the 2nd team to be a 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. They lost to Farley Dickinson, which I think is in New Jersey. I don't know where that is. But
Chris Farley's alma mater, I remember.
Yeah, of course, yes. But anyway, so it would be really interesting if Purdue happens to win the national championship this year. So it would be the only time that 16 seed has ever beaten a 1 seed. And it's in, there's multiple hundred of these matchups over the last 4 years of the tournament.
Genuine question. And if you said this, I apologize. We are talking the men's tournament right now, not the women's tournament.
The men's tournament, correct. The men's tournament. Yep. So they are the first team that's in the Final Four that we're discussing. They also have a 7'4" player named Zach Edey, who is a large individual who takes over. He scored 40 points in their last game to lead them. He is a behemoth inside. He's
who else?
Really interesting to watch.
All right, we have 3 more. Who else we got? What do you got?
North Carolina State, the Wolfpack. located in Raleigh, North
I
Carolina.
am aware of them partially because of my professional occupation. I have done an NC State game before for
Okay.
work. So I am aware of their
Sure.
logo. I have put it on a slate. A slate for the non TV initiated is a graphic that says we're broadcasting from this area. So I went, hey, boom. They're in the
There you go.
ACC. I know because I was
That's
doing.
correct. They elect.
Oh, I was doing an ACC
What does
game.
the ACC? What does the ACC stand for, Mike?
Something Coast Conference.
Okay, that's very good. What coast do you think it might be?
All coast.
Coasts generally refer to the oceans that
Atlantic.
they're
It's got to
near.
be the Atlantic.
Hey, that's
There
you.
it is. Not the All Coast Conference. Got everybody.
I want to pitch him on it. Although, so in collegiate sports, and you stumbled upon this, I'm sure, purely by accident. There is a large reorganization of a lot of the conferences are breaking down to
Oh.
becoming these super conferences. So conferences have 20 plus
Is this
teams
like
in
how
them,
the Big
and
Ten
teams
has like
from
15 teams or something like that?
so
Yeah.
and the ACC is going to have more, and actually are going to have they're adding Cal, which just doesn't make
Did you
any
say?
sense. So because Cal is located like
I
California.
thought you said they were adding a cow, and I wasn't sure if that was a reference or I'm not getting what you're saying.
No, so they're adding SMU, which is in Houston. So I mean, they're adding, or I'm sorry, SMU's in Dallas. Anyway, it's in Texas. NC State is really interesting because so leading into the tournaments, a lot of times these teams have conference tournaments, and they play a series of games against the other teams in their conference. And if you win that conference tournament, you get an automatic bid into the tournament. That's how that works. If you win your conference tournament, you're automatically in. North Carolina State's resume for their wins and losses throughout the season wasn't good enough to get invited to the tournament by all accounts. They were going to be left out of the tournament. And then they went on this crazy run. They won 5 games in 5 days to win their conference tournament, and now have won, what would it be, 4 more. So they're 9 straight games. They just keep fighting off elimination. And they have this, Rotund is probably close. He's a big fella. But he his name's DJ Burns. He looks like somebody that would be more of a post player, a big guy under the basket. Yeah, he's a big
Oh,
guy.
sorry, I just Googled him. Didn't see that coming.
But he is a fantastic passer and really nimble. So like one of those things where he's a much bigger guy but very light on his feet. So he's fascinating to watch, and he has been the main guy that has just been destroying. They beat Duke to make the Final Four, and he had 30 points or 29 points to make it there. So DJ Burns is your guy for NC State.
I hope this isn't a kiss of death, but gut reaction, I want this guy to win, and I want them to win. Not just from the underdog standpoint if they're the worst ranked team in the Final Four, but dude just looks cool, and he looks like he's having a good time, and I would like to hang out with him. Yeah.
He's rapidly becoming a fan favorite across the board.
I would hope so.
Let's go to the third team, which is not as much known for making it this far in basketball, much more in football prowess, and that is Alabama is the third team in the Final Four.
That's exactly what I would have said. I would have said it's weird that it's not football because everyone knows it's one of those, they've been so good for so long that anyone who even tangentially barely knows anything about sports knows they've had a run of football dominance. Here's my question to you. Is this something that has been building in basketball, or is this a fluke shock surprise this year?
So it's a combination. They've been getting better. They've made the tournament the last few years. They take a very interesting approach to their game. Their coach is a former high school math teacher and takes the analytics out of it to say that if I make this many 3-pointers and take this many, I don't care if you make this many 2-pointers. And that is his approach. They just start bombing away from 3-point range. And that's actually how they beat Clemson in the Elite Eight, was because Clemson played well, shot better, but Alabama made more 3-pointers, and that was why they won. So it's a tactical thing that's really interesting, and that's part of their offense. They were one of the top scoring teams in the country because they decided to do that. So it's an interesting dynamic. They have a 6'10" guy named Grant Nelson who has a mustache to, I don't know, It echoes. Yeah. Check out Grant Nelson, Alabama.
Ah, that listen, I listen, I'm just gonna say that's a pedophile mustache. That is the
Yeah, yeah.
term. That is the term. That is don't leave your kids around this man. No, I gotta cut that out.
I,
We're not leaving that in. We're not pause. I
I,
can't leave that line in.
I don't know. He's from North Dakota. I don't know if that excuses it, but it's he.
The mustache or the pedophilia? Damn it, I started
Oh boy. All right. Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
stop.
Can't
I
can't
couldn't
can't
help
can't
that
keep that
line.
in.
We're not keeping that in, but Randy, that line was too perfect for what you had said. All right. I'm getting the exact opposite reaction to the player from NC State, where I see him, this guy from Alabama, and I think
You want-
I want them to lose so bad. I see this guy's face and I want them to lose.
yeah.
So
It's
I am judging a book by its cover. This could be a saint of a person. This could be the nicest man ever on the face of the earth. I'd like them to lose.
and then the fourth team is the prohibitive favorite. Have just destroyed everybody they've played basically since January, and that's University of Connecticut, UConn, located in Storrs, Connecticut, which is about a half hour east of Hartford, for those of you scoring at home. So
I already had a question, frankly. Is this the same coach? Because didn't they win this like 10 years ago for the men?
So UConn, Connecticut, has been one of the most successful college basketball
Women's, yeah.
programs. Oh yeah, women's too, but men's
Oh,
surprisingly.
oh,
So
oh, oh, okay.
they have won. They had a coach named Jim Calhoun who won multiple titles with them, but then they won another title in 2011, and then another one in 2014, and then they won last year. And they keep with different coaches. They just keep winning.
I did not realize they won last year.
And
I was thinking they won like
yeah,
10 years ago. So they're doing okay.
they are trying to become the first team to win back-to-back national championships since Florida did it almost 20 years ago. And so it's and before that, it was a long time even before that. When someone did it, I think Duke did it.
You would ask me what my gut reaction is, though, when you bring up a lot of these teams. And for me, my gut reaction is women's basketball when you say UConn. I recognize that I didn't realize that the men have had the success that they've had. Look, because I like when you were saying that, I looked up their Wikipedia. Yeah, they're doing fine. They're doing real well. Had no idea. To me, UConn was a women's basketball school. Like that's where they shined. I didn't realize it was both.
So they are UConn is on either side of the bracket with Purdue. So they would not face Purdue until the national final, which will take place on Monday. And they also have a 7'2" guy who is going to go to the NBA. He's just a monster inside, and his name's Donovan Clingan. So I think everyone is looking forward to that matchup of the 7'4" guy from Purdue and the 7'2" guy from UConn to have these huge behemoths of individuals next to each other. So
that's fair.
Facing off against one another. So, and I think that would be probably the best matchup. But I mean, you never know. That's it. All it takes is one game, and we'll find out Saturday night who wins. And that's our fun NCAA breakdown.
Oh, you weren't going to do the women's Final Four, you sexist pig? I thought we were. No. I thought you were going to talk about both, but Randy's a sexist.
So let's do it now that you've accused me.
I honestly, all joking aside, I thought we were doing both legitimately.
Okay, sure.
Which, by the way, I thought I just looked up the wrong thing. Two of the teams are the same. So, NC State and UConn both making it in. And honestly, I don't think we have as much to talk about here because we just covered two of the teams, not the women and the men, not the players, but like my reaction to them. And then we've already talked a little bit about Iowa and the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark. And then South Carolina also there apparently apparently ranked number one. I don't know anything about them.
Yes, the number one team. They have not lost this season, so they have lost basically 2 games in 2 years. Unbelievable. They're coached by Dawn Staley, who was a player on Team USA women's basketball for a long time, was a coach and a player in the WNBA, and they've been really, really good for a long, long time. So I would say in the Final Four on the men's side, it is far less likely that Alabama or North Carolina State have a shot to win the title. I mean, you never know because you only have to win 2 games. It is very feasible that any of the 4 women's teams could win the title. Like, that is not.
Despite the Caitlin Clark hype, it's not a lock that this is her tournament because they're all, yeah.
I mean, UConn has an unbelievable player too, who is coming back from a major injury a couple of years ago, Paige Beckers, and she fills up the stat sheet almost as much as Caitlin does, and does it in other ways as well.
There's one thing before we move on that I'm still slightly confused on.
Yeah.
You're sure Purdue Boilermakers are not a hockey team? Because it really sounds like it should be a hockey team.
They may have a hockey team, but
No. Like,
no.
I think I'm thinking of the Edmonton Oilers. Is that still a team? Do they exist?
You pronounce the city wrong, but yes, sure.
Edmonton. I knew that. Edmonton.
Oh my God.
Okay, so now that we've talked about, I don't want to say your real sports, but maybe your more legitimate mainstream sports, because there's still a lot of athleticism going on. I want to talk about my event for the weekend. Yes, the Final Four is happening. Yes, there will be national champions crowned over this weekend, but there will also be decided who is the head of the table, who can defeat the final boss. Will Cody Rhodes finish his story? Ladies and gentlemen, this weekend is jam-packed because genuinely just both the men's and women's NCAA tournament and fucking Wrestlemania is all one weekend. Like, that's an overload because you can do Friday basketball, Saturday basketball, or Saturday night 1 of Wrestlemania, or basketball Saturday night 2 of or Sunday night 2 of Wrestlemania, and then the championship for the men on Monday, or Monday Night Raw. So what are you going to do? You got so many options. But that said, this is a big weekend with a lot going on. But we are going to talk about WrestleMania 40. This is the most hyped I've been for a WrestleMania in years. I liked 38, but I was not hyped going in. The last time I was this excited going into a WrestleMania, honestly, was WrestleMania 30. It's been 10 years. I've talked about my wrestling history, although some of it's been cut out here. There was a dark period in wrestling from like WrestleMania 32 is my least favorite WrestleMania of all time. And they took a lot of years to build back up to a place where I could appreciate being a fan again.
Okay.
And just the twists, the turns, the story, the matches, everything leading into this card. And I won't do the full backstory because believe me, there's been so much going on that I can't touch on everything for everyone. But there's 2 nights of action, Randy. I don't have a lot to say about a lot of the undercard. There are some years where I'm not as excited for the main event, but I think all these undercard matches could be amazing. It's kind of the flip this year. This WrestleMania is really being sold on the strength of the main event. Like, it's going to be a huge win if everything else fills in. It's like, wow, top to bottom, those were also great matches. And I really enjoyed that. But the draw this year is the 2 nights of the 2 main events. And that's really good for the card because that means people are going to stay with the show.
Sure.
I hope that means they're not putting on a shit show the rest of the time that you got to suffer through. Sure would like those 2 nights to be entertaining. But this is on the strength of.
But that's cool that one essentially leads into the other one.
It's a really good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The money is The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. This has been the mainstream build. This has been the build. This is what people are coming for. Worryingly, for some people, they think maybe even more than night 2, even though the stipulation is if Rock and Roman win on night 1, then it's anything goes night 2. Anyone can interfere in Rock and Cody's match. Anything can happen. Bloodline rules. We can do whatever the fuck we want. If it's Cody and Seth win, then it's no one in the bloodline can interfere. It's a straight one-on-one match. I think Rock and Roman win, and there's going to be shenanigans for night 2 we get into later, which will make it more exciting because to get rid of all those guys on night 2 would be a real waste of talent. But it's a fun bit of drama. The problem is, you look at all this stuff, right? And has The Rock overshadowed everyone in this match? Yes. And here's the thing. He's The Rock. They had to course correct because he came back and was instantly overshadowing everybody, trying to be the focus as the good guy.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, what? what is this? So they're like, all right, fine, we'll make him the bad guy, which everyone was in on because
Yeah.
fuck you. And he's entertaining, so we're here for it. But he's still just taking you. I feel like there are people in the mainstream world who are going to forget there's still a second night. Like this is the match, right? It's odd. What do you know? What has been crossing your mind? What have you got as I gloss through this card?
So I only have a couple thoughts. One,
Yeah.
I mean, the entrances alone are going to take forever for
Oh,
the
God.
match because they're all pretty. I mean, I guess Cody's is pretty intricate too, right? Like, and I don't really understand Seth Rollins. I get people like to sing along to it. I'm not like that in on it.
I
I
don't
don't.
get him either. I don't like him as a character. His music is more popular to me than him. I'm saying that, like, if you took his entrance away, I don't know who cares about Seth Rollins.
Yeah. Is it like who's the guy that comes out with the violinist?
Oh, they don't do that anymore, but that was Shinsuke.
Oh
Yeah,
God, that was such a
yeah, they
cool
don't do that
intro.
anymore. It was. It was. They don't
But it
do
was
that anymore.
everybody just loved to do the or whatever it was. And uh if does Rock still come out to If You Smell and then that, or does, because I almost feel
Yes.
like it would be cool if he could revert to Do You Smell What the Rock Is Cooking when he was a heel, but
No, they do that, but they've modified it. He's using his 2003 heel entrance, where it had the version but it's the Hollywood Rock entrance, where
oh
there's a
okay.
bunch of like lights and build up and a little different beat. It's definitely a heel version of the song. He has his babyface version, his heel version. They're definitely using. Look up Hollywood Rock on YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll get what I'm talking about. And
Gotcha.
honestly, God, with like, you're right though, because Roman Reigns walks to the ring Undertaker slow. That
Yeah.
shit takes forever. And all four of them are getting independent. And the reason there's night one of WrestleMania isn't because they can't get all these matches in like you would think it is. It's because 2 hours they're going to be taking on their
I may have
entrances.
to watch this so I can run a clock on it because I'm curious.
And Rock and Roman are going to win over Cody and Seth to set up the drama for night two, because Seth and Cody both have their singles title matches on night two, and it will set up more stipulations, more drama, more intrigue to have them going into night two losing with anything being able to happen. Then we won and everybody's safe. There's no shot in hell they win that match for narrative reasons.
It's fan cast. Stone Cold's not coming tonight too, right?
Bro, you're beating me to the punch because I think he is. Because it's two things, right? One is WrestleMania 40,
Right.
and they're going to trot out so many legends over 2 nights. Just legends of WWE, legends of WrestleMania, backstage segments, promos. WrestleMania 30 has one of my favorite opening segments of all time. I'd watch it right now. It's Hulk Hogan comes out and cuts a promo where he also fucks up and calls the New Orleans Superdome the Pontiac Silverdome. It's fantastic. And then Austin and Rock both come out and make fun of him for it, and they just talk for like 20 minutes. I think something like that is bound to happen again.
Yeah.
But this is not confirmed. Can I give you my pitch
Please.
for I'm just skipping right to the main event of night two because you brought it up. It's bloodline rules, right? It's anyone can do anything, anyone can hurt anyone, anything. That means the entire bloodline. Jimmy, Solo, Paul Heyman, everyone's out there. Drew McIntyre will probably want to come out. Seth Rollins will probably want to come out. And they'll fight. Who knows what happened with their title match? But I'm saying it could be pandemonium. I think WrestleMania WWE legends come out to run interference on the bloodline. And so, like, because I think all these people, it's going to be Jimmy comes out. Maybe Jay tries to stop him. I think then, Solo comes out and somebody else tries to stop. All these people are coming out. Rock comes out to fuck everything for Cody. All these other people have had someone come out to stop them. I'm telling you right now, if they have not brought Austin out,
the glass breaks.
because remember,
Can you imagine?
Oh my God. Austin wrestled the match 2 years ago. He's been posting all over social media. He is very clearly in ring shape. He has been posting workout videos and I'm still in ring shape videos. He had a match 2 years ago, his first one in 15 years, and it was great.
You have to do two things. You have to hit somebody with a chair and stun them. I mean, that's all he's got to do.
Right. That's just it. He doesn't have to wrestle a full match. What I'm saying is, if anyone's like, well, he's retired, he is ring ready for as much as he would need to do on night two. That's what I'm saying. I think that it's going to be a fucking smorgasbord of bullshit, right? Everyone's interfering, but then other people are interfering because a big part of the storyline has been everyone's sick of the bloodline. I mean, everyone in WWE wants their stranglehold over WWE to be done, right? Let's move on the titles. Let's move all this. That's part of the story is we all need to band together to move on and defeat them. I think legends get involved. If not a ton of legends, but there are going to be people who are like, we need to run interference to try to make this happen. And I think Rock comes out, causes some bullshit, and the glass breaks. And people lose their fucking minds. I think Rock is taking a stunner on night 2. 100% Rock is taking a stunner on night 2.
Where is Mick these days?
Aha! You say this also. This is not as in my mind confirmed, but Mick Foley, who famously about 7 or 8 years ago tried to come back for a match and did not get medical clearance from WWE.
Mm-hmm.
They were starting an angle that with one of the younger guys, they had done like some social media stuff that was supposed to build to a match, and then he didn't get clearance, so it just never happened. So, but he has been posting over the last 6 months or so, him trying to lose weight, and he has been very vocal that he wants one last match and he wants a final run. Not a run, but
Sure.
like he wants one more match. And I'm saying that like if he can get medical clearance and he's turned it around the way they say he's turned it around, maybe he's one of the people that storms out and tries to help. You never know.
What in
There's that there now flip side to that, there is the risk to me of devaluing if Cody does manage to win, and that's the story we're going with, and it fucking better be, and I'll get into that. But does it devalue Cody's win to have 1 million people come out and run interference for him to win? That's the flip side of that. But or is it such an amazing moment?
Nobody cared when Mankind won, you know, like half the corporation was out there or whatever. So,
but Cody has to fucking win. And not just because I'm emotionally invested. If he loses against Roman for the second year in a row at WrestleMania, after 2 years of saying, I have to finish this story, he's a joke. No one will take him seriously. And I'm talking about real world joke. Have you ever heard of what happened, like Lex Luger being a choke artist? So like Lex Luger back in the 90s and 2000s, only won when people had stopped caring. They would push and push and push his wins to the point where people were over it. That can't happen to Cody. They need to capitalize on this moment right now. And they need to have him show up Monday Night on Raw with that fucking belt. They can't have a schmoz. They can't push it to Backlash. They need to have him fucking win. Or else people are just going to be over it. They're going to have you'll get booze, but it'll be the wrong kind of booze if he loses. It's not going to be fun. We're having the story and we're all playing along booze. It's going to be, fuck you, I'm not watching next month booze. And it's going to be, I'm over this booze. So,
cool.
Thank you for indulging me on this.
No,
I realized
I had no idea of some of that stuff. So it's just, I probably will actually tune in now.
Yeah, we did it, guys. We got one. That kind of wraps it up for what we were going to talk about today. Fun fact, we have no idea what next week's show is going to be. We haven't talked about it. Sometimes I feel like we lean into, well, we have some ideas of things we could talk about. We have not done any prep work. So I'm as excited as you are, dear listener, to find out what the fuck next week's going to be about. So I'm really excited about all that. But Randy, this has been a fun one. Fun fact, last week was our longest episode ever. Did you know that? So
and that was like 60% of what he had planned.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Yes, it was. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that was with about a half-hour material cut out.
Wow.
So it was so long that the website I use to upload the show, there's a little button that says, would you also like to upload a copy of this to YouTube? And I always click yes. And when I clicked yes, it went, we can only upload shows under 2 hours. And I went, that must be new. We've clearly done that before. No, we had not.
Yeah.
That was the first time we crossed the 2 hour mark. So there you go.
Wow. Lots to talk about.
As we roll in at the time of recording, at an hour 55. This will probably roll in, I'm guessing, an hour 45. This will be safely everywhere we need it to be. And I'll say, thank you, everyone. If you like us, leave reviews, 5 stars, leave comments, social media, Mike Barcode, MikeBarcode. If you reach out to us, we'll get back to you. We love interacting with people. It makes it fun. And, I'll probably say something stupid about you. Won't you love that? With that, I will say thank you and goodbye. And Randy, please finish this out.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, everybody, and farewell.
Ooh, boy, that felt more definitive than normal. I feel like normally you're like, yeah, goodbye, everybody. No, farewell.
Tune in next time and find out.
If there is a next time. Bye.
Bye.